I would like you all to imagine looking up at the night sky as a young child. The stars stretching endlessly, whispering of distant worlds, of possibility, of mystery. Space has a way of captivating us. As young kids, we dream of touching the stars, of stepping foot onto the moon, of reaching and exploring the unknown. But somewhere along the way, many of us let go of those dreams. Space becomes something for scientists and astronauts, for the people at NASA and SpaceX, not for us. I know that feeling well. I remember visiting the Kennedy Space Center as a young kid. I remember craning my neck, staring up at the towering rocket before me, its ordinary metal skin faded and scarred from journeys to places I couldn't even begin to imagine. It wasn't just a machine. It was a traveler of the cosmos, a witness to worlds my wildest dreams hadn't even begun to sketch. That trip ignited a passion in me. I wanted to know everything about space. I filled my shelves with books, built model rockets, and watched hours of space documentaries. I was just a passionate kid looking up at the stars and wondering, what if? And yet, despite my fascination, I never thought space could be a part of my future. When the school science fair rolled around each year, I never chose space as my project. Instead, I always chose medicine because to me, medicine was familiar. It was home. Both my parents are doctors, and I had been steeped in the medical world for as long as I could remember. At age 4, I proudly pronounced that I was going to figure out how lymphocytes talk to each other to treat cancer. Yeah, now, that may sound like an unusual thing for a 4-year-old to say, but in my world, that wasn't unusual at all. That was normal. What wasn't normal, however, was talk of space and careers as astronauts. Space was something for a select few, something distant but extraordinary. Space was a dream. It was something beautiful, but not something meant for me. But is that dream really so far-fetched? Should space really only be reserved for a select few? And more importantly, why should we care about space when there are so many pressing issues right here on Earth? Well, if there's anything I've learned while engaging in space medicine research over the past few years, it's that we belong not just gazing at the stars, but stepping into their possibilities to infuse hope right here on Earth. Space is an enticing thought. Some chase the stars in the hopes of discovering extraterrestrial life. Others are driven by the pursuit of knowledge, unlocking the secrets of our universe. And for many, space is simply the embodiment of possibility. Space is a blank canvas for human ingenuity. But here's the thing. Despite its wonder, space is not a welcoming place. It's not Earth 2.0. In fact, space is actively trying to kill us. Before we can establish our futures in space and hope to bring its benefits home, we have to understand just how unwelcoming space really is. If we're serious about sending humans to space for the long haul, whether it be to orbit or to the moon, to Mars, and even beyond, we have to reckon with the fact that space is fundamentally hostile to human life. Let's start with the real kickers. Space is an extreme environment. There's no oxygen, there are dramatic temperature swings, and there's very limited resources. And perhaps the most daunting aspect is simply distance from Earth. When things go wrong, and they always do, there's no 911 to call, no ER to drive to. You're it. Then there's space radiation, a constant invisible threat dealt by distant supernova explosions. Without Earth's protective magnetic field, space radiation can damage DNA, increase cancer risk, and weaken the immune system. A psychological layer is added to these physical challenges when we consider the isolation and confinement that are accompanied by traveling in a small space with the same people for months and even years. Living in tight quarters, far from loved ones, with no escape, it can lead to stress, anxiety, and even depression. And as if it's the cherry on top, there's microgravity, the absence of the force that keeps us grounded here on Earth. It might sound freeing and even fun, but without gravity, the body begins to unravel. Bones lose density, muscles atrophy, and fluids shift upward, expanding interstitial spaces and causing pressure in the skull. Many astronauts experience vision problems, and even the heart doesn't have to work as hard, leading to cardiovascular deconditioning. Faced with these challenges, we've had to build an entire field dedicated to keeping humans alive while in space and after their return home. It's called space medicine, and yes, it sounds exactly as cool as it is. This field has asked us to answer questions that we never before thought to consider. How do you mitigate the short and long-term effects of space on the human body? How can we use the spaceflight environment to increase astronaut health? Space medicine pushes the limits of science and the definition of medicine. It forces us to think differently about how we consider healthcare, and it pushes innovations that address previously unconsidered health considerations. Here's the exciting part, though. These innovations are not just for astronauts. In solving the problems of space, we uncover better ways to heal people here on Earth. Space isn't just about going beyond our planet. It's about learning how to better care for, protect, and sustain life on Earth. One example is protein crystallization. In microgravity, the big bad wolf of spaceflight, proteins like the ones shown here grow differently than they do on Earth. They form crystals that are more uniform, more pure, and more sturdy, leading to larger, more stable crystals. This increased stability is critically important when it comes to proteins used in therapeutics, called monoclonal antibodies, which are foundational to many modern cancer treatments. On Earth, monoclonal antibodies tend to be very unstable. As such, drugs need to be constantly refrigerated and administered intravenously, an approach that limits access and complicates treatment, especially in low-resource settings. When monoclonal antibodies are crystallized in space, however, their stability improves dramatically. Merck has used this insight to develop a version of a drug that can be stored at higher temperatures and can be delivered by a simple subcutaneous injection, much like a flu shot. This not only improves quality of life for patients by removing the need for infusion centers, but it also opens the door for global access. Life-saving cancer care can now be delivered in pop-up clinics and remote locations, something that until recently was unimaginable. Another area of impact is bed rest research. Many of the physiological conditions experienced in spaceflight, bone demineralization, muscle atrophy, and decreased cardiovascular function, closely mirror the effects observed in long-term bedridden patients. Unlike most patients, however, astronauts are a very small, highly monitored group of people whose rapid physiological changes serve as a valuable model for testing preventative strategies. Research in this domain has led to advancements in dietary interventions and wearable technologies that can improve musculoskeletal and circulatory health in long-term bedridden patients. At the University of Virginia, studies are exploring how space radiation impacts the immune system and the consequences that it has for cardiovascular disease and cellular aging. Astronauts experience accelerated cellular aging in space, and by studying this, we can understand the mechanisms behind age-related diseases. The interventions that come from these studies won't just help astronauts, but will impact the aging populations globally. Another interesting area is the development of remote medicine and telehealth, technologies that are crucial both in space and on Earth. Space is, by its nature, an incredibly remote environment, possibly the most remote one a human can exist in. When an astronaut experiences medical issues on board the International Space Station, they can't simply walk into a hospital or call for immediate in-person assistance. Instead, they rely on two options: autonomous diagnosis and treatment using onboard medical resources, or real-time consultation with medical experts on Earth. This extreme limitation has led to developments in remote diagnostics, medical decision support tools, and communication systems that allow care to be delivered across vast distances. These same advancements are being used on Earth to extend healthcare access to rural and underserved populations, where hospitals may be hours or even days away. From revolutionizing cancer care to improving remote medicine, space has already shown us how we can better heal, connect, and protect life on Earth. And if the past is any indication, the future of space medicine will only take us further. The sky quite literally, is the limit. As we continue to push the human presence deeper into space, the groundbreaking research being done today is fueling tomorrow's breakthroughs that won't just benefit the handful of people that make it off planet, but entire populations right here on Earth. One of the most exciting areas of research is regenerative medicine and 3D bioprinting. Stem cells behave differently in space than they do on Earth, offering new ways to grow tissues and to even print functioning organs for use in transplants. This has the potential to one day eliminate wait lists and save countless lives, especially in areas where organ access might be limited. Another compelling area is in space-based drug development. Much like what was done at Merck with their cancer therapeutic, scientists can leverage the microgravity environment to observe and manipulate molecular interactions with a level of clarity and precision that simply is not possible on Earth. This opens the door to more effective, targeted treatments for diseases that affect millions. And then there's aging. As was mentioned before, astronauts age faster at a cellular level in space. By studying these changes, we learn about age-related diseases that affect everyone, helping us not just live longer, but live better. Because aging is not a problem faced by a few. It's a universal reality we must all contend with, and the answers we find in space could just influence how we all experience life here on Earth. The common thread among these breakthroughs is that they were all shaped by challenges unique to spaceflight, challenges that forced us to think differently about medicine and healthcare, and they have direct impacts on diverse and vast populations on Earth. Many of these solutions might never have been imagined without the constraints of space. Space has always symbolized possibility. It's a reflection of our species' ability to imagine, to reach, and to transcend boundaries. When we go to space, we don't just learn about the cosmos, we learn about ourselves. These missions, these discoveries, they are deeply human. They represent what we can achieve when we dream big and work together. Some of the most transformative discoveries will come from problems we haven't even thought to consider yet. But that's the beauty of it. That's the potential. The future of space medicine is not written in the stars. It's written by the people who are willing to look up, wonder what could be, and choose to take part in the journey. That journey, for me, began long before I stepped foot into a classroom or a lab. It started with a small spark of wonder and a slow turn to possibility. Let me take you back to that moment at the Kennedy Space Center. The possibility hooked me, but it still felt out of reach. That changed in high school when I became aware of efforts to manufacture Earthbound products in space. Suddenly, space didn't feel imaginary. It wasn't just exciting, it was practical, it was accessible. It had real implications for Earth, wherein the powers of space were being brought back for the purpose of life on Earth. That's the moment things shifted, because there was a tangible connection between our terrestrial world and the one hanging high above our heads. It no longer had to be one or the other. I arrived at college here at Haverford with a different mindset. I realized I no longer had to choose between my love of medicine and my childhood fascination with space. I could bring the two together with a major in astrophysics and a pre-med course load. I got engaged with space medicine research, including the projects done at Merck and UVA I mentioned earlier, namely to improve cancer therapeutics and to understand cardiovascular disease. Space was no longer this imaginary thing. It felt like home. That kid who once stood wide-eyed under a rocket, he's now helping explore how space can help us heal right here at home. And here's what I've learned. If we make space feel accessible, if we break down the barriers that say, this isn't for you, we don't just get more astronauts. We get more dreamers, more doers, more people who are willing to bring the universe a little closer for the rest of us and make the universe a better place along the way. Today, I stand before you as proof that space is within reach, and space is worth reaching for. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person, one passionate individual, looking up at the stars and wondering, what if? Thank you.